Hey guys, it's Eamon. I did a video yesterday about the Bible and homosexuality as it relates to the creation story in Adam and Eve. If you guys didn't check that out, definitely check that out after this video. But this video is actually going to be a spin-off on that one. I wanted to say some things that I really couldn't say because of time constraints in the last video. The point of this video is going to be proving to you how completely absurd it is that people would condemn homosexuals based on what type of sex they have. And so first I want to throw out a few numbers for you. I found out that the average person only has sex for 0.35% of their life. Not 35%, but 0.35%. So less than 1% of the average person's life will be spent having sex. So I don't understand why we are judging people based on something that they do so little of. There are so many better ways to judge the worth of a person's life: how you treat your friends and family, how you treat strangers, how you impact the environment around you. So I really think that we need to be focusing on the core values that a person has rather than something that they almost never do. If you're still not with me, then I want to move on to the Bible, and I want to actually show some passages in here that, if you really read into it and look into it, shows that sex was never part of God's original plan for us, and that sex in and of itself is a sin, and so it doesn't matter what type of sex you have, it's all sin. Basically, the Bible goes in the first few chapters, and it does mention Adam and Eve as husband and wife, and it does mention them having sex and populating the earth. But if you have actually read the Bible and become accustomed with the style of it, it actually will talk about things and allude to things that have not happened yet, and then later it goes in more detail and it explains how they came to pass, how it happened, and why it happened. And so I think that that's what's happening here, because it's not until we get to Genesis chapter 2, the very end of it, chapter 2, verse 25, that we actually start to get a better understanding of how sex was viewed by Adam and Eve in the beginning and what God's opinion of it was. So I'll just start there. Chapter 2, verse 25, this is talking about Adam and Eve. It says, "And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed." So we can see at this point that Adam and Eve don't have any understanding of what their naked bodies are or what can be done with them. Then we can jump down to chapter 3, verse 7. This is after Adam and Eve have eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, their first sin, and their eyes have been opened up to other forms of sin. It says, "And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons." So obviously we can see here that before they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, before they committed sin, they didn't know what their naked bodies were. And after they ate of that tree, they were ashamed of their naked bodies. So now their eyes are open. They know what sin is. They know what their bodies are. And now they've become ashamed because they see that their bodies can be vessels of sin. Then we can jump down to chapter 3, verses 10 and 11. This is where they have hidden themselves from God as he walks through the garden, and after God finds him, he questions them. And Adam says, "I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself." And God says, "Who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat?" And so we can see that once again Adam is ashamed of his body. He's ashamed of what he did. He's ashamed of the sin that he now has knowledge of. And God is very upset because it was not in God's original plan for them to know what their bodies were capable of. He did not want them to know what nakedness was. He did not want them to know what kind of sin their body could commit in the flesh. It's only after that only after they have been cast out of the Garden of Eden, when we start reading chapter 4, verse 1, that it says, "And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived." So this is after they have been cast out of the Garden of Eden. This is after they have been punished by God, and they only have sex now at this point. So I don't see why we are trying to condemn people based on what type of sex they have. One sin can't be worse than another sin. Sin is sin. So if sex is sin, then sex in all forms is sin. Sex between a man and a woman, or sex between a woman and a woman, or sex between a man and a man. It doesn't matter. So we can't really go around pointing fingers and saying your sin is worse than mine. We just need to accept our own sin, atone for that sin with God, and go on with our lives. I hope that you guys like this segment. If you do, please like and subscribe, and definitely give me comments. I want feedback. I'll also be putting the math from what I said before about how much we have sex down in the description below. Definitely feel free to double check that if you want to. Thanks guys so much, and have a great night.